Hi, my name is Mackenzie. I'm a software developer and I'm going to teach you how to be better at the computer. Today we're going to be talking about onboarding people to a newsletter in kind of a unique way. There's a new newsletter service that's kind of becoming really popular called Beehiiv. The main benefit of Beehiiv is that they build the templates for you. They have that in kind of their web server, and they're able to dynamically insert ads into your newsletter. So you, as a newsletter writer, are able to buy ad space on other people's existing newsletters and effectively like vampire attack their kind of audience if there's like alignment there. And then additionally, once you have your newsletter built up, you're able to sell ads to other related things and kind of give back into the ecosystem. So brilliant marketplace. Money goes back and forth both ways. And they provide some tooling for onboarding to the newsletter, but I think that we could do a little bit better. And I'm going to show you how to do a little bit better right now. Okay, so let's take a look at the computer. So here we are in Beehiiv, and you can see that I've got a brand new newsletter. Nobody's kind of subscribed yet. We're going to be importing the GPT boss users, so if you start to see a newsletter from this, that'll be where it's from. If you're subscribed to the channel, you're probably going to see this newsletter shortly. But what I want to talk about is the growth tools, right? So the growth tools are here under the resources on the homepage for Beehiiv. There's a main homepage and then a sign up page. So let's go and look at these. We already looked at the sign up page really quick. But it does look pretty much the same. It does look like we just got forwarded straight to the subscribe page. And this is great. I don't think that this page would work as a conversion. Like if I went out and I bought Instagram ads and I was like, hey, do you want to be like really good at the computer? And then I sent somebody to this page, I don't know that this would sell them on signing up. But we get one more growth tool here called the Magic Link. And what the Magic Link does is if somebody clicks on this link, which is basically, we have our URL here, magic.beehiiv.com. So this means like this resolves to some server somewhere that's listening for GET requests. And if we send a GET request to the route v1, and then we have some dynamic data here, this whole string, I think it's a UUID, but it's some kind of like identifier, right? This is my newsletter's number. So I'm saying, hey, if I send a GET request to this server at the file at v1 with a GET request, with this inside of the kind of like identifying parameter, and then with the argument of email is equal to some email value, then this will essentially automatically subscribe that person to my newsletter. So that's great because it gets us pretty close to something like signing up inside of our own website. All that we have to do is have some kind of like state handler, so JavaScript, to update this string, or we could use a template literal to insert their actual email inside of this argument here. And I think it would just go like plain text. I can't like edit it, but let's copy this and go over to one of our code editors. This is the Vertitex site. So let's take a look at the Vertitex site back here. And I'm just on the local right now, but this is basically what's published online. So this is the website just for kind of my main business. There's me. We talk about the products that we sell, the Nona Coffee Percolator, GPT Boss, the AI web app, and then soon we're going to put the newsletter kind of in here. And we're going to do a page inside of this site for signing up. So you can learn more about the newsletter, like the main newsletter site, or the main newsletter sales page is going to be hosted on this site. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is I want to make a forms component folder. And then the form that I want to make right now is good at computer subscribe. And then here we've got, I don't know, we'll just say the form. We'll start here with the form. We're using Solid. I really recommend that if you're using React, if you're like a programmer and you're used to programming on the front end, you should have been using React for the last little bit. You might have been using Vue or Svelte or Angular, and those decisions are all wrong. It's a little joke. There's no wrong way to do the computer. But if you're still using React, that's a mistake too, because Solid is much, much better, and we need to be moving things over to this system. So we're going to import create signal, which is kind of like Solid's version of use state. We're going to get that from SolidJS. And I legitimately think that that's it. I think that's all that we have to do with this kind of form component. So we're going to export default function subscription form. Takes no props currently. Let's write a function called get magic link, and this is where we're going to return our templated email. This part here, we're just going to use interpolation to kind of put the stuff in there. And something has to be inside it, but we're not ready for that yet. So the next thing we got to do is const email, set email. We're going to type this as a string, initialize it to nothing. Something that's a little bit different about Solid is that this is not the value itself. It's something called an accessor, which is a function that returns the value itself. So we just call the function and it returns the value of email. And then we start to do our layout. So we're doing something like a card, right? So we have a flex column. So everything is lined up in order, 12 pixels between each thing. We have an input of type email that holds an email. This one has a padding of 12. It's got a border of a color that I've set, custom color. On input, this changes. And then this get magic link, it updates, right? When the person clicks on this link, this calls the function, which uses the email in order to send the thing. But that's not good enough, because we actually need the email to be valid, right? So we're gonna const validate email and just let Copilot figure this out for us. Yeah, something like that, I guess. If you have an email shorter than 5 characters, this isn't going to work for you. But basically what this code does is it pulls the accessor, so it pulls the value of email, and it makes sure that it has a rat tail, an @ sign, and that it has at least one period. So we know that there's an @ domain dot something, dot whatever your TLD is. So this is a very simple validation. I don't know if we have to go too much further than this. It's not like we're building a rocket ship here. If we wanted to build a rocket ship, we'd have to do things a little bit different. So we're also going to go on to import create effect, because there's some state that we want to track, which is is email valid? And this is a Boolean by default, but we can create an effect here. Set email is valid. Validate email, and validate email should update when email updates, and we're going to have to test this out. And so then the last part is show when the email is valid, right? The person can only subscribe when the email is valid. So now we're going to create a new page. We do that inside of routes. We're just going to go newsletter.tsx for now. We're going to pull all this stuff over. Most of this stuff we're going to have to use again on this page, but we'll go through it line by line. Don't need any of that. I don't think I need this one yet either. So let me export default function newsletter, takes no props. And then I want to copy the styles. In here I have this idea of a product grid. This style, this tailwind style right here, I want to pull over because it basically makes something like full height and center, which is pretty useful. I don't need this ref. The other thing I need to import is the subscription form. Couldn't find that one. We will put this on this page right here. The other thing we have to do, because we're rolling our own with Solid, making our own website, is we have to include the all of the title information, all of all of this stuff right here. I think that this is really nifty. We wrote out, particularly the icon meta, I'm really proud of. We wrote out just all of the code in order to get all of the right icons for all of the different devices. So if you're using like Windows tablets and they got those like crazy tiles, that all works. And if you're using iPads at like different screen sizes, that'll all work. So that's cool. Let's go back to this newsletter page. Vertech Inc. Subscribe to Good at the Computer. Kind of AI generated tagline that we're going to have to workshop later. But the description here is Good at the Computer is the official Vertech newsletter, keeping people up to date and educated on using new digital technology as it is released and popularized. I'm very excited. This year I'm probably going to be having to do tutorials on how to use an at-home robot because things are accelerating so quickly. All right. So let's try navigating to that page and just make sure that everything compiles. And here it is. We've got our form, and then there's no valid email in here. But if I do mackenzie@gptboss.com, for example, then we get our subscribe link. And we can see down here in the corner, it's going to be really itty bitty teeny tiny, but it is that exact magic link, and the email is equal to the email that I just kind of put in. And we can also see that if I remove characters, like if I was pretending to be mackenzie@gptboss.co, that would still work. If I was trying to be hello@gptboss.com, that would still work. It's basically whatever you email you put in there. By sending a GET request to this server, it knows that it has to send that email parameter a welcome email, an onboarding email. This needs a little bit more love, I think. We're going to need to spend some time thinking about like what do we want to do for like a title, for example. So I could come in here, div class is, we're going to do another flex call with a gap of 12. And there's a div on this side. We're going to do a header, height of h2. Subscribe to Good at the Computer. And then we'll do another header with a height at no, we won't. We'll just do a paragraph tag. Good at the Computer is the official. We already wrote all this stuff out. Nice and long, don't like that. We have a max W option in Tailwind, and then a lot of people don't know about this because they just kind of go like max W 8. Like Tailwind is built for kind of like sensible defaults, but the sensible defaults are not fluid. They're based on REM, and I'm a very easygoing guy. I like to use fluid units because I don't know, I'm an air sign or whatever. So what I would like to use here is character width. And in Tailwind, if you didn't know, now you know, you can use square brackets to just put in the exact value, the CSS value that you want to use. So now we've kind of reduced this so it's not as like crazy for the line read. I think it's still a little bit long, and this is much what running websites is all about: changing things, seeing what happens, seeing what you like. I like this. And because it's there, now we can just put whatever paragraphs we want, right? And so we get our 12 pixel gap. We get to put kind of other information in here. This newsletter is delivered at least once a week, perhaps more, depending on any available news or other interesting things that have recently happened. The newsletter is somewhat is free to subscribe to, and minimally supported by ads. The purpose is to upskill you and help you get good at the computer. That's that's a reference to good at the computer. This is a reference to a Strange Brew skit. I'll see if I can find the clip later. Maybe I'll include it in the newsletter. Now I find it to be a little bit too narrow now that all this text is in here, so maybe we'll come back to like a 55 or perhaps a 60. See how we feel. I like that a lot. Let's mat it. I'm gonna go BG white actually, and then I'm gonna go P 24 pixels, rounded 12, and a shadow. I kind of want that title bigger. I do things a little bit backwards. This is just like another really minor pro tip, but a lot of the information that people put on the internet about, especially the stuff that you would get from ChatGPT, because people have been so wrong about this so many times in a row, is that design and semantic information, like there's such a thing as the semantic web, and people have been recommending like, hey, these things should be aligned, right? Like your H1 tag, so H1 is a semantic tag that lets web crawlers and other people know this is the most important idea on the page. The H1 says this is the most important idea. But psychology doesn't really work that way, right? Like think about like if you're searching for a new soda brand, and you get to a website and the biggest piece of text on the page says soda brand, you'd be like, well, duh. Like, but also everyone would have to do that. But the thing that you want to see when you land on that page is what makes this soda brand different. If I saw like made of pure pressed pineapple, and we make soda with like pineapple little bits in it, I'd be like, that's cool. That's what I want to see in a headline. But if pure pressed pineapple was the H1, then this website wouldn't be related to being a soda brand. You know what I mean? So something that you should do is actually divorce the semantics and the stylings. You want to have the highly important semantic information on the page, but with design, you want to devalue it compared to the things that make your brand special, which typically come lower in the hierarchy as far as SEO is concerned. So I do that in this project, right? My H1, let's take a look here. It's actually quite little. It looks a lot like the H2, but the H3 is actually quite large. I think this looks good. I think we need one more thing. And this project has actually been needing it for a while. And that thing that we need is a common component called a spacer. And all that a spacer is, this is kind of a goofy component, but it's all about dry code, right? Like not repeating yourself. So we're not returning, we're exporting a default function called spacer. All right. So we're exporting a default function called spacer, and we're actually going to write an interface for this. Interface spacer props. because this one is going to take an optional height parameter. And this will be actually a number in pixels. Can I still use JSDoc for this? Component props. Can I add props.height? Height of the spacer in pixels. The class of spacer. No, wrong. So the thing that we want to do here is min h is equal to, and actually, you can't use template literals with Tailwind. One of the major drawbacks, I think, of Tailwind is that it has to be the value that it is at compile time. And that doesn't happen with prop arguments. So what we need to do here is actually import show from SolidJS, introduce a fragment, because we're going to be returning two things that would be siblings if they weren't mutually exclusive. So when props.height is undefined, we're going to have a default value of 24 pixels. Or we do this. We go const class name min height props.height pixels. And so when it is not undefined, then we just apply class name. I don't know why this works, but like including the prop in here doesn't. But that's life. So let's test this out. I might have to put my foot in my mouth a little bit and do a little bit of testing, and I might have to open up AI in order to figure this stuff out. I don't like the space between all of the text and the form, so I'm going to do a spacer. And it wants me to do a size of 12px, but right now I just want to test the default sizing works okay. Looks good to me. I kind of want to put another one below it. Looks much better. But then let's try. I wanted a height of 36. Does that work? No, it doesn't. So let's go back here and think about this a little bit. What we can do, instead of a Tailwind style, is an inline CSS style. So we could try height at the start. We might have to swap that for minimum height, but height seems to be working just fine. I'm going to put another spacer, just a little itty bitty one here. Good. I'm actually going to put a header here. Okay, good now. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's it. There's some other stuff that has to go on this page, like a back button, but I mean, you got one right there. I don't like having to like add a back button. So the next thing we have to do is add it into the active products here. So let's open up Figma for a second. I have somewhere this thing, this group. Just give me 1 second. I gotta turn off some stuff so my computer runs again. Okay, we're back. So I've got this thing here in Figma. I'm gonna copy this as a PNG actually. I'm gonna come over to the brand kit. I've built some kind of pre-existing gradients in here that are nice to use. I'm going to shrink this guy down. Just do some text. If I remember correctly, there's a font family called Bebas New that we used for GPT Boss. Flatten this, scale it. Design is a little bit harder to narrate because it's such like a non-linguistic task, but basically what I'm looking for here is like same size and like decent kind of padding between them. We'll group this up. We will make this into an auto frame, which is like a really nifty feature from, what's it called here? Figma. I should just be able to eyedrop this and no. Okay, unfortunate. Another thing you could do in Figma, sorry, what I was saying earlier, such ADHD, is that it is hard to narrate the stuff that you're doing while you're designing because it's not at all a lexical task. It's all very like visual and like spatial, and because those parts of my brain are so far away from where I'm thinking about speaking, it's a little bit difficult to put them together. So now what I want to do is compare like the palette that I've selected, the gradient that I've selected here, to what's on the page. We go brown, blue, and then another brown. What if you were rotated? Nope, we like it like this. Go to the computer card BG. Open up our thing here, go to our public products. I'm just gonna drag that over. Go back to our index. We've got this thing here, our active products. This is so much fun, being able to use your source code as a database. This is something that you can do when you have only like a little bit of data, and as this site grows, we're going to talk about how to offload this stuff from your source code into a database proper. Yep, great, same thing there. That's not the name of the file. Good at computer card background. And then the link is to newsletter. We come back to this page, and now we've got all three. Although, that makes me notice that I want to change this this max width. That one I think can stay, but this one will go a little bit higher. We'll go 1180. Oh dear. And they're all the same size. Why? Perhaps because it is indeed a grid. Super great resource here. They should make posters. They do. I think I just saw an ad for one. Yeah, there's a CSS grid poster. So what we're looking for is to align these things kind of toothways, right? Instead of like all being centered. This one. Align self-start, and then how do we do that in Tailwind? Self-start, okay. So on this guy, we should be able to do self-start. Beautiful. What are my other options? Self-center. That's great. And then because the design is a little bit unbalanced, Good at the Computer has such a larger headline than everybody else. It's quite tall, and tall things go in the middle and mog all the other components on the page. Yeah, just like that. So we also want to make sure, this is like another SEO thing, you want to make sure that the main keyword that you're after, so for me, like try GPT Boss, for the Nona, borosilicate glass coffee percolator, for Good at the Computer, official Vertitech newsletter is probably the best that we can do. So I'm going to come back into the code, and we want to add a href. This should just work. Just going to newsletter. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. Do we dare test it? Like, there's some kind of curse with testing code while recording. Normally, when I'm writing code, it just seems to kind of work, and you can see like every way that I wanted to style with it. It worked. It did exactly what I was expecting it to do, but I wasn't happy with the design. So a lot of the changes that we saw just now weren't specifically like technical failures, but more like, you know, trying to remember the vocabulary and, you know, word at the tip of your tongue, normal kind of vocabulary issues for somebody who's fluent in a language. And then also being picky about art. But if we run this right now, is it going to work? If we put in an email to that magic link and hit subscribe, is that going to work? And that's the crux of this demo. And this is all there's been editing, obviously, because there's been some downtime, but this is all shot in one take. Let's see. Let's try it. We'll see what happens. So we come in here, and I should have some emails open right now. No, of course, I've closed them. So, yeah, let's do this one. hello@getnona.com. Let's try it out. Great. And then it redirects us back here. That might be something to change here in the advanced options. So I will just throw this on that goes into the newsletter form. There. It did not redirect me. Oh well. What's important here is that we now have 2 active subscribers. We got the big rocket ship right there. So that all works. So all that we have to do right now is push this. Even though the redirect doesn't work, I don't know. I'll figure that out off camera, but that is how you add a custom magic link generator to your website. And this logic here of the template insertion, this will work on any React website. And if you're really good, you might be able to use it on sites that are not React. But I don't know how to do that. Maybe I'll figure it out. Maybe I won't. That's how you would do something like this. You could see like it's just a form plus a template before it turns into a link. So you could do all of this in kind of basic JavaScript. So you could insert this as a script on your site whenever you like, and it'll work anywhere. It'll work inside of a pop-up. It'll work inside of a modal, right? Pop-ups, modals, buttons, menus, anything like that. Like you could hide this away in different parts of the UI, or you could put it on a page, or you could put it in the footer, do whatever you want. This can kind of work everywhere. So we'll push this and then we'll see it on live in just a second. Pretty cool, right? You know a little bit more about how the computer works now, hopefully. You learned a thing or two, and I'm going to be trying to upload more tutorials like this to the YouTube channel over time, because it's not enough for me to just say like, here's an app, like, hey, like, don't worry about being good at the computer. I've done the hard parts. I've done the hard bits of programming for you. I think that everybody should know how to program. Like, we're at the point in time, I think this way in the same way that people think that you should be able to change a tire. I think that like the way that the world is going and the way that like AI is upgrading, I think that some basic coding, like what we just did together, is an equivalent skill to knowing how to like check your oil or change your tire when you're working on computers. And computers are like the central machine for our new kind of economic reality. Computers are going to be uploading software to robots that are working in our factories, that are picking our food. And knowing how to interface with this thing and knowing how to tell the computer what you want it to do is going to be a critically important skill moving forward, when you're surrounded by computers that are touching the world around you through AI, robotics, and other things like that. So keep subscribed to this channel to get better at the computer and learn more about AI and design and, oh my God, all this other stuff that's happening, and I'll see you later.